start at 7 minutes. Sorry that was a little bit delayed, a few technical issues at my end. I think most of you have, but in case you haven't, it would be really good at this point if you were happy to mute yourselves. And when we come to the question and answers at the end, obviously you can unmute, and it will be really great if perhaps during, as I'm speaking, if questions occur to you at that point, it might be a good idea to put those into the chat. And then perhaps Mrs. Gavigan will keep a little eye on that for me so that we can pull that together at the end. Is that okay, Mrs. Gavigan? Good. Lovely. Okay. Brilliant. Right. I'm assuming, I can't see everybody, but I'm assuming everybody can hear me okay. Put stuff into the chat if there are any issues on the technical front, and I might have to call my technical team back in, i.e. my husband in the other room. Welcome to everybody this evening for our presentation and kind of a consultation event, really, just to share with you some changes that you may or may not be aware of around the teaching of relationships and sex education. So I'm going to go into my share screen. I wanted to welcome everybody first. Let's be hopeful that this is going to work okay, everybody. Okay, if we can ask to make sure everybody is muted, that will be marvelous. And I'm going to get started. Here we go. There we go. Okie dokie. So here we go, everybody, and we're going to click through. Just so that you know, I'm going to present you the aims of this evening. And the aims being, we want to make sure that everybody is up to speed and are aware of the requirements around relationships and sex education, which is what RSE stands for. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of what the statutory and the non-statutory requirements and elements are in that respect. To share how we propose, and it's really important that you understand that this evening this is about proposals, okay, what we're proposing to do, because this is part of a consultation. So nothing is set in stone yet. We're just going to present to you how we think and how we intend to roll this out. And then you get a chance to respond to that as well. So it's really important that you understand it's about proposals that we'll present to you this evening. We hope to address some of the myths around the teaching of religious and sex education, because there's been much in the news about it over the last year or so, and also then to make time for questions from families. So hopefully that all sounds okay to everybody. So don't forget, if things crop up during this, and I should say at this point, it's not going to be a really long presentation. So that should hopefully put smiles on people's faces. Not going to be a really long presentation, but there will be opportunity for you to ask questions and things at the end. So hopefully that's a good thing for everybody. So I'm going to press on. I'm going to begin with this one, the elephant in the room. That picture that I've put on the screen, hopefully that you can all see, is actually from a newspaper, probably about a year ago, or I lose track of time. You may be aware that there was a lot of publicity around the government's introduction of religious and sex education and their changes around the curriculum there. And it did hit the news in quite a spectacular fashion in places, particularly places like Birmingham. And what that has done, it caused a little bit of a stir. And so what happens is that then people sometimes get misconceptions around it. So I wanted to kind of be upfront with everybody at this point. So what I want to let you know is, yes, there are certain myths and urban myths around what religious and sex education will look like under this new curriculum, but wanted to make sure that we were clear what it absolutely is not. So I'm going to give you a chance just to have a look at the screen there. It says it's not undermining parent and individual family values. We're absolutely not doing that. We want to work with our families and to complement and supplement all of the good conversations you'll be having with families at home. It's not about undermining different cultures and religious beliefs. We completely respect people's individual views about these things. It's not just about sex. That's an important one to say, because people do have some misconstrued ideas. it doesn't promote sex at any age. It's not about promoting it, and it's not about promoting same-sex relationships, but I put in bracket, but it does address this at an age-appropriate point. So I wanted to be really clear and upfront about what it absolutely is not before we actually go into what it will be. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. Really important for you to know that we will be using a scheme of work from a company called Kapow, and Kapow Primary produce schemes of work for all areas of learning, and a number of local schools have bought into that for other areas of the curriculum. We have decided that they have put together a really good curriculum for relationships and sex education, and it's one that we felt that we could work with. So that is what we've chosen to go with. And we've also chosen to we think that's a good idea to follow their curriculum and their scheme. So I'm going to talk with you a little bit more about that now, because as I stated really clearly at the beginning, that this is a proposal rather than anything set in stone. I'm not going to read absolutely everything on these pages. This session is being recorded. Also, these page and screenshots will be available as well, and probably through the website. So I won't go through everything. If you want to look at things a bit more closely, then you can do that. But suffice to say that from September 2020, what you must remember that this was decided pre-COVID. So there has been a slight delay on that. But initially, from September 2020, all primary schools are required by law to learn about relationships and health. And what the government have done due to COVID delays is that by the summer of next year, so summer term 2021, we must be teaching from the new curriculum. Hence why we're kind of kicking off all the consultation stuff this term so that we are ready in plenty of time. The relationships and health education is the compulsory element of the school curriculum, and it includes a section on relationships and then another section on physical health and mental well-being. The important part here is that although that is statutory, schools still have quite a lot of control about how we do that and about how we tackle some of those topics within it. So you need to, ideally trust us that we will make sure that they're appropriate for your child's age and development, and will be sensitive to you as families and the views that you hold on things. So there's a trust relationship that is definitely required here. Why have the government decided to make the changes? Well, it's largely due to the fact that I think it hasn't really been looked at for about 20 years. And you will be aware that the world in which we live has changed enormously in the last 20 years. We've only got to watch the news to realise the challenges that face our young people, that perhaps were not challenges that we faced when we were their ages. We want to make sure that we're equipping children to be able to thrive as well as survive in the kind of modern world. Our aims as laid out there is that we want children to grow up healthy, happy and safe, to make sure that they're well informed, that they're making really good choices based on knowledge and not based on what their friends tell them. We want to support them in order to make the most of the opportunities that life presents, and also to just have successful and happy adult lives. Parents would share with us, I'm sure. So moving on to the part about relationships, this is part of the curriculum is really focusing on children and their relationships in terms of family contexts, in terms of friendships, and in terms of dealing with the internet, so online stuff. We will talk about things as what is relationship, what is a friendship, what is your family, what do families look like, and where can you go for support and help. So that's the kind of context in which that this will be delivered. So by the time they leave us in primary school, these are the aims. I'll just let you have a quick look at those. I would hazard a guess that nobody would disagree that those are valid aims and that what's something we would want for all the children. I think that those are the values that we would share. So those are what we're hoping to achieve by the end of their primary phase. Here we go. In terms of physical health and well-being, this is where we're going to be talking to the children about making good decisions about their health and well-being. So we talk about that will cover healthy eating, it will cover their sort of attitudes to things like alcohol and drugs. Rest assured, we're not going to kind of go down that route with your foundation stage children. That is going to be delivered at an appropriate point in their development. About making those good decisions, about recognising issues in themselves, so becoming reflective, thinking about issues and recognising issues in others, so they can choose friendships and things carefully and safely, and also about where they can go to access support if they have any concerns or issues. So again, I think those kind of are very laudable aims that you would all share with us. So by the time they finish primary school, I'll let you just have a quick look at that slide. Just want to highlight the one there where it says about facts about drugs, alcohol, and the risks associated with them. Again, just to reiterate that is handled in very different ways across the year groups, and what that would look like in year 1 would look very different from what it would look like in year 6. And we'll look a little bit more at that in a short while. Okay, so that's where we want to get to. So I guess the issue is in part a little bit about how we get there. Now, if you do want to know a little bit more about the kind of the statutory stuff, so the government kind of, I'm trying to think of the word really, the guidelines around this, you can do that. It's on the .gov site. We've given link there, but you could alternatively just Google sex and relationships education, and the .gov site and the actual guidelines that we work from are in there. So if you want to kind of read it straight from the horse's mouth, as it were, then that's where you can go to. But again, you are going to be able to access these slides, so you should be able to follow that link through. And just to reiterate also, we have not yet started teaching from this programme. We were delayed. We were planning to do what we're doing now in kind of spring last year, but the world went a little bit crazy, as you're all aware. So we're not, we've delayed the phase of that. So we're not teaching any and consultation around what we hope to teach. And that will kick off certainly by the summer, if not before next year. Okay, I said this right at the start, but it's worth reinforcing and reassuring that we are just about complementing and reinforcing what you as families will be teaching your child. We know that you will be talking to your children around healthy relationships. We know you're going to be talking to them about how to look after themselves, and we know you're going to be talking to them about staying safe. So this new curriculum is just reinforcing what you are already doing and hopefully complementing it in a positive way. It is not about replacing, and it's not about undermining what you might be saying in the messages you are giving to your children. And we want to reassure you on that as a school. It's really important to us. In terms of us as a school, we as your child's school have to teach in a way that is respectful of the age and stage of your child, as well as the religious backgrounds of the children. So we will always keep that in mind, and we will always be respectful around that. We must consult you as a parent as we develop the policy, which is tonight is part of that process. And we must publish our policy. So what will happen is that once we've gone through this consultation process, giving you as parents the opportunity to kind of get back to us on thoughts that you have around that, we will then produce a policy which will then be taken to governors and ratified, but we're not at that point yet. It is at that point that we will publish the ratified policy, but you will see proposals before then, and tonight is part of that process. You can express your opinions as a parent. Tonight is some way towards that, and I'll talk to you about other ways that you can communicate on this issue. The important part also there is that it's not just about the how and when that we cover, but also about there is some additional content that we as a school are choosing to cover that isn't statutory, okay? This gets down to the statutory parts. To be clear, you cannot withdraw your child from any part of the relationships and health education curriculum, because the government, the content that's included in this curriculum in order to keep them safe. It's, as it says there are separate rules on withdrawing the child from sex education. So that's a separate issue that we will talk about. That's why it's so important for us to get the curriculum right and to feel that we're doing a good job on it, because you cannot legally withdraw your child from that element of the curriculum. So it's really important that we get this right. In terms of the sex education part, which is an additional, sex education is separate from the RHE, the relationships and health curriculum, and you can withdraw your child from some or all of the lessons included on sex education, but the head teacher must grant your request to withdraw your there. Please, check with the school about the content of what they're teaching, and do remember, and this is the important part, is that the science curriculum does include human reproduction as part of that anyway, and you are not allowed to withdraw them from that either. So the chances are what we cover in terms of the additional material, which you are allowed to withdraw your children from, won't differ greatly from what's in the science curriculum anyway. But if you have further questions around that, then, obviously do ask, but I hope that's kind of clear. Okay, now these are where we've got quite a lot of information on the page, and I do not intend to read through it all. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to have a look. What I'm showing you here are some of the units that are covered as part of the relationships and sex provision that we're proposing to deliver from Kapow Primary, as it says on the top. And what that shows you is some of the topics and how they'll be tackled from year 1 through to year 6. So I'm just going to give you a moment to look at that, and then I've got another similar slide. So we've got the family and relationships section, and that goes right through from year 1 to 6. And then we've got safety and the changing body from year 1 through to year 6. So I'll just give you a moment to have a look. If that's okay with everyone, I'm just going to move on to the next one. And you can see the other elements there: the health and well-being, citizenship, economic well-being, transition and identity. And you can see there are some gaps because some of those topics are just not appropriate further down the school. So that's why sometimes they only fall into year 6. But hopefully you can see that there are some slight differences in some of those topics covered and what they would look like across the year groups. As we said, it's really important that we make sure that what we're delivering is delivered in an age appropriate way and comes at the right point in terms of their age and their development. Okay, I hope it's okay if I move on. I know that there's quite a lot on there and you probably won't have read everything, but what I wanted to do is kind of give you a flavour of how this will go. And again, you'll be able to look at this in more detail. I've got a few lesson summaries here. This one is quite an important one, because the section that comes under family and relationships, what I've done here is probably picked potentially the most contentious issue And it's a contentious issue because that's what's been kind of flagged up in the newspapers, and that's what's been kind of publicised more in the news. So I've put up there the kind of overview of the Family and Relationships unit from years 1 to 6. And then what I've shown you in the right-hand corner is how that kind of links in with how same-sex relationships kind of links into that teaching on family and relationships. It just gives you a little bit more depth where it says what is family. It then shows you what would actually be included there, and hopefully you can see the difference of how that is touched upon or covered across the year groups. So I'm going to give you a moment just to have a little look. What you should notice there, particularly in the kind of blue table that's on the bottom right-hand corner, is that this is very pupil-led. So it's very much about responding to children. What you need to know is that teachers will be very mindful and very respectful. Sometimes, in my experience of teaching sex education, even how that looks further down the school, is that sometimes children do ask questions that are not appropriate to share or to tackle in front of a class of 30 children. It may only be 1 or 2 children that actually have asked that question. So teachers can be sensitive. Teachers can take those children aside and talk specifically to them rather than the whole class, if that wouldn't be appropriate. Teachers might refer it back to families to let you know that actually they asked this question today, and sometimes we do that. So don't think that because one child has asked a question that necessarily that means that would change the whole kind of focus of the lesson. It wouldn't necessarily. Teachers are very adept at responding in appropriate ways to issues raised by children. Okay, I'm going to plod on. Again, some more lesson summaries, just so you can see how that might look in year 2 and year 6. Try to give you that breadth from kind of the lower end of the school to the higher end of the school. Also, so that you know the full curriculum, we've kind of given you little snippets here tonight. That is also available for you. We'll make all of those documents available for you to look at in more depth. And then we've got the safety and the changing body. The part here to be aware of is probably the year 6 curriculum, where in red it lets you know that those elements of the curriculum are where parents can withdraw children. Those are the kind of the non-statutory elements that are part of our suggested curriculum. And remember, again, it is a suggested curriculum at the moment. Okay, I'm going to move forward. It's always really hard to judge how quickly people might read and how much time you want to spend reading that closely. So I'm hopefully not whizzing through too fast, but moving fast enough for everyone to keep with me. Another example there from the health and well-being, just to give you the idea of how it looks in year 2 compared to how it looks in year 6. And then I'll move on again. Okay, so really important points here. Our aim as a school is always to work with families. I keep reiterating this because I'm really sort of passionate that you really understand this, that we are wanting to complement what you do at home. Okay, we want to be a support for you. We will provide families with a summary of upcoming units of work. So if we know we're delivering a particular unit of work within this curriculum, we will give you the heads up beforehand and just give you an overview so that you know what's coming. You might find that useful because then you can preempt things with your children, discuss them beforehand, or you could discuss them alongside. But rest assured, you will not be in the dark about what's going on. You'll be kept very much abreast of what's being discussed and what's being covered at school. We will be available to discuss specific concerns you may have already, or sorry, you may have ahead of any particular units of work. So if, for example, something was coming up, the teacher has provided you with the kind of the unit summary, and actually there are a couple of aspects of that that worry you a little bit, then speak to the teacher. If the situation remains as it is, it may mean emailing the teacher, but make contact, really keep the communication open. It's really important. We're quite happy as a staff for you to be doing that. We will be dealing with all the learning in a sensitive way and a safe way. As I said, it will always be age appropriate. Tricky issues that have come up or things that we think are perhaps kind of age sensitive, we will be flagging to you at home. So if there are things that we feel are best dealt with at home, we will let you know in a sensitive and discreet manner. Okay. And then I've just put in the key. So more about tonight rather than going forward. But issues, having listened to what we said tonight, having once we put some of those documents and make them available to you, and having looked at them, if you have questions and issues related to the curriculum proposal, because that's what this is, then I've put some contacts there for you. Now, I'm going to come off of screen share, I hope, without shutting down the whole meeting. I do. And then this is really kind of bang on target. The rest of this event is really for you to be asking questions if you have them. So I'm going to stop the share, I hope. Brilliant. Here we go. And we're back in. So, Mrs. Gavigan, has anything cropped up on the questions? No, Mrs. Stevens. Okay, thank you. What I forgot to do in a very, very unprofessional manner of me, I didn't actually introduce that Mrs. Gavigan was here tonight, as she is the PSHE lead, and RSE kind of falls under her banner. So Mrs. Gavigan is here, so she's another good go-to. Why I've listed her as a point of contact as well, should you have any questions regarding these new curriculum changes. If anyone has any questions, now is your time. And we will leave it a few minutes. If nobody does, then we will end the meeting and you can go back to watching whatever you might be watching on the television, which is fine. A big thank you that actually there's a lot of you have joined this evening. So a big thank you to you for that. Okay, we have a question. I'm assuming we mean when will we start delivering the teaching? We're hoping to have everything ratified, so that means the policy agreed by spring term. So our aim will be to be absolutely teaching in the summer next year, so summer 2021. If it turns out that we might actually be ready to roll that out a bit earlier, it might be kind of just before Easter that term, but we would let you know. Yep, regarding, so question about seeing the teaching materials, absolutely. So the content, a bit more depth on some of the kind of snippets that I showed you tonight will be available as whole documents, and you can look through the whole thing. So that's absolutely fine. There are also some sort of short animations and things that we use. So as required, we can certainly let people have a look at those. Any other questions? Okay. Right, I'm going to give it 2 minutes just in case anyone has got a burning question they would like to ask. You can come off mute and just talk to me. You don't have to put it on the chat if you don't want to. That's absolutely fine. Equally, if you're feeling shy, then we can leave it there. It's not a problem. Okay, so that would be used in terms of taking into account the religious backgrounds and beliefs of families. How do you intend to do this? At the moment, we're just suggesting. So what we would like all our families to do is to look really carefully at what we're proposing. And then it will be a lot easier for families to speak with the adults. We've made it clear on what we can't do and what we have to do, because there are legal requirements that we have to fulfill. But we absolutely want to kind of discuss the specific issues that you may have and to see how we can best resolve those. So it will be definitely done, I would say, probably more on an individual basis. And we will absolutely want to kind of, work with families as much as we can. I hope that answers that, Jonathan Gilbert. I hope that answers that question. Oh. Thank you, everybody. Just to reiterate that point, it's really important that you understand that as individuals, we are going to listen to what any specific issues that you may have, and we will do our best to resolve them as far as we can, because we do have statutory requirements. But I always find that working together with our families is the best way, and we don't want to go against that, because it's something we believe in as a school. So we will absolutely do our best on that one. Okay, everybody, just to remind you that a big thanks for attending this evening. If you do have questions, then you may email us directly. All the usual emails are on the website, and we will be glad to answer them as far as we can, and we will be as quick as we can, certainly hopefully by tomorrow, I would think, to get all the other kind of accompanying documents and things that I've referred to this evening available for you to take a look at. So a big thank you to everybody for joining. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I dare say I will see a fair few of you around school at drop-off time tomorrow. So good evening, everybody. I'm going to end.